Good evening, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the co host today, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors. It's been a little time since our partner in crime, our co host, has joined us. But I reached out to him and I said, you know what? It's time to get back into that batter's box. It's time to get onto the hill. It's time to talk some bases. World Baseball Classic around the corner. This gentleman here will be attending. I am jealous as hell. One of our good friends and family members, I'm assuming on the 18th, will be there for the quarterfinals himself, Mr. TJ himself. But enough. Let's get to some of that warmer weather climate and let's bring in the one and only Mr. Scott E. Webb. Good evening, sir.
Yes, sir, Mr. Jeffrey. How are you? It seems like it's been a little while, but man, is it fun to get back in. We're talking baseball, not football today. Although football's great. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I look WBC. I got my hat on, man. I bought my tickets today. I couldn't be a happier guy.
Well, you said it's been a little while since we got together on the live airwaves. How about Michigan at Ohio State? That's how long it's been.
Well, yeah, it's been a little while. But whatever. I mean, shit happens. Life goes on. We're still buddies and pals. And, you sent that damn tweet out there and I about fell out of my chair how young I looked in that picture you sent out. And I was like, oh, my God, somebody needs to come on here and tell me I look just as young as I did back then.
That was 2018. I mean, that was 5 years ago, Scott. We've been together at the hip for a long, long time. I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be prouder. And it doesn't matter how I do it and how you do it. But when we're both on the same side of a baseball game, it's usually hitting at around 78.9%. So, but I wanted to bring you on. So much has happened in the offseason. So much has happened just today. These little tidbits. What is it for the Yankees? The Oakland A guy that they got in the midseason. Montas looks like he's done for the year. And you know what? If I'm Texas, shame on Texas. DeGrom throws a little side session in the bullpen, which is probably all of about 13 pitches, and says he was a little stiff or sore. And it's cold in Arizona. We're going to hold him out a couple days. Why don't you just keep that in-house?
Well, it's fun to have something to talk about, right? I mean, they got to talk about something. I mean, they got a whole bunch of pitchers now, but DeGrom leading the way out there. So anytime DeGrom does anything, goes out, stubs his toe, gets a blister on his little finger that's on his left hand, so he's not throwing. But it's all going to matter to them. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Rangers. And just before we got on air, I looked in Pacoda Baseball Prospectus put out their standings, and I'm like, holy shit! So there's a lot of weird stuff. Just looking at how things are supposed to go, and then if you really look at them against the lines and all that stuff, I got to do a little more studying before I do any sort of actual major bets. So far, I put out a card that says, "Hey, these are my season wins." But there's a lot to be excited about this year, and it kicks off with the WBC. I mean, holy cow, Jeff. These rosters on these teams are they're the best of the best players in the world. And they're all going to play each other. And it's going to be so much fun.
Yeah. Okay. So we have an option here, and I'll ask you, do you want to start WBC or do you want to backtrack and what's some of the big things that you saw in the off season for these MLB teams and the movements, the free agents, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
It doesn't matter. I can go either way. I mean, the WBC thing is just top of mind for me just because I bought the tickets today. So it doesn't matter. I mean, we can go either way. I did make a wager on the WBC champion already. That doesn't mean I won't make another one. It just means I just did that one. Sometimes when you find what you think is value, you have to play it. So I did, but that doesn't mean anything. I mean, that could certainly be something else to talk about. But it's funny. Like when I was looking at these standings, and they just came out, so I haven't really had a chance to do anything except make a tweet about it and say, okay, look, here they are. But one of the things that I looked at was, everybody likes Seattle, right? I mean, they think they're going to be really good and all of that stuff. Well, Baseball Prospectus, which is the PECOTA rankings, that they're the ones that come out with PECOTA. They've got Houston winning 95 games, then the Los Angeles Angels winning 86 games, Seattle winning 82. Well, shit, 82 is about 500. So it's interesting to me how some of this stuff plays out. And Jeff, I think that here's one thing that we need to talk about probably before we talk about the teams is this season there is a balanced schedule. I don't know, we talked about that before, or if you've had anybody on that talked about it, but the balanced schedule means a lot because divisional play in the past has meant every team in the division has played each other 19 times. And then they got their divisional rival, like the Yankees would play the Mets or whatever. And, the Cubs would play the White Sox, from the interleague play. And then they were lined up against a division, okay, well, the American League East would play, I don't know, the NL West or whatever. And that's how they would make out the 162. Well, that's not how it goes anymore. They're going to cut that back. So every team will play every team. So no longer do the teams like, let's just say the Cleveland Guardians, because they won the American League Central. They don't get to beat up on the Tigers 19 times, and they don't get to beat up on some of the Kansas City Royals 19 times anymore. They don't. That's gone. So now those teams will lose those games against those teams and then have to go and play everybody in the National League. So it's a different sphere of how it should go. And there was a study done, and the study's a little unfair, and maybe it's a little unbiased to try to figure out how it is supposed to be graded. But think about this, right? So some of these teams, like the Miami Marlins now get to lose 15 games against the Phillies, against the Mets, and against the Braves. That's a pretty good deal for a team like that. I mean, it is. It's a great deal for a team like that. Of course, they pick up everybody in the American League, but that being said, they don't have to play those teams all the time. And it's also interesting to note that the way this study was done, they did the study based off of this is what the schedule would have been in 2023. So meaning that they're the divisions stacked up the same 19 times against everybody and all that, and then your interleague divisional rivals, and then this is the opponent you were supposed to play, whether it was a National League West or whatever. So they did all that, and here's the math of all those games. I didn't do all that. I just studied the report, right? So I'm like, I don't need to do that. Somebody else did that. And then they said, okay, well, here's the new schedule. So who benefits from this? Well, every single American League team benefited, every single one. And every single National League team did not. And that's just because of who they played in the divisional rounds, and then also because the American League is a little stronger than National League throughout. So anyway, all of that being said, the teams that benefited the absolute most are in the American League East. The teams that have benefited the most are in the American League East. So they lose games, like the Rays, for example, now don't have to play. And the Baltimore Orioles are pretty damn good now. And the Red Sox, let's just say they're all 500 or better teams. Well, now they don't have to play each other that many times. They lose 15 games that way against those teams, and then pick up teams against the Miami Marlins and against these other teams. So the American League East benefits the most. So the big thing and the big caveat to remember is when you are actually going to look at season win totals, I'm going to just say it this way. I don't think those numbers are baked in that way, because how could they be? I don't think they know that I don't think they looked at them that way. I just think they looked at them and said, okay, they're going to win this many games and they're going to do this and they're going to do that. So I think that you have an edge if you can really figure out, kind of how that plays out. So one of the things that I looked at was the Baltimore Orioles, because, I think the Baltimore Orioles are a team on the rise. And what they did last year was kind of fluky, right? I mean, it was kind of fluky. They weren't the best hitting team. They weren't the best pitching team, but they hung around and were scrapping and won games and did all this stuff. Well, Jesus, Jeff, they got superstars, man. I mean, this Adley Rutschman kid, he's the best catcher in the American League already. Statistically, he's the best catcher. He's supposed to be the best hitting catcher. He's projected to be the best hitting catcher, and he's a great leader on that team. And then back that up with the number one prospect who's supposed to be like even better than him this year, and Gunnar Henderson to play third base. That kid has metrics that, depending on which metrics you look at, I think Zip's metrics were really aggressive on him, and Steamer was a little different. So I'm kind of, when I looked at this, there's one called depth charts, and depth charts is a blend of the two. It kind of combines them and says, hey, well, we're going to take the best of this and the best of this, and it puts them together. Well, Gunnar Henderson is the 48th ranked offensive player in all of baseball this season. That's not too bad for a kid who is 21 years old and really hasn't done much in the major leagues, with 20 home runs, 77 RBIs, and 80 runs scored. That's not too bad. So now you got Adley Rutschman and you got Gunnar Henderson, and then now you get Grayson Rodriguez to pitch. And he's a guy that throws on average fastball 95, 96. He can touch triple digits. And when you're starting to talk about a kid like that, that's what they miss. It's the guy that can match up to the other guy's aces. Well, here's a kid that can do that. The only downfall is he didn't get many innings last season, so they're going to put him on a pitch count I shouldn't say pitch, innings count. So he's not going to get to pitch more than 150 innings probably. So anyway, we'll get to see him. But I don't know how much we'll get to see him. But all that leads to me to believe, when you start to look at the Orioles team, that what they have this year, and you can look back and everybody talks about Ryan Mountcastle and he was a young stud that was going to hit and all this. And he had kind of a down year last year, even a bunch of home runs. He should bounce back and have a pretty decent season. He's a young kid. That's what they do. And then Cedric Mullins, holy shit, he's going to be their leadoff guy. So now you got if the talent flows well, if Rutschman plays like he did last year and grows, and Henderson is what they think he's going to be, shit, they got a first five guys in the lineup that's going to be pretty damn good. And then that levels things out. And they went out and got a couple of pitchers in the offseason. So they're going to, who their leading pitcher was last year? The guy who won the most games, pitched the most innings for the Baltimore Orioles. You'll never guess in a million years. You'll never guess.
Jim Palmer.
Well, pretty close. It's goddamn Jordan Lyles. Jordan Lyles. So you're telling me that, you can't do better than Jordan Lyles? Well, I think they did, and I think they're going to be better. So I think this is going to be a team that people are saying, oh, they're going to regress and they're going to do. I don't think they're necessarily going to go compete for the American League East. That's not what I'm suggesting. But the win totals that I saw, and I pull it up right now, I got it on DraftKings. Oops, that's something else. Where's win totals? Season wins. They're there. So if I go look at the Baltimore Orioles on win totals, they're over under 76 and a half. Pro Baseball Prospectus says they will win 74, and Fangraphs says what is that? That's 457. Fangraphs says they'll win more than that. So I think that's a good hedge position because they're going to get the favorable schedule, plus they're going to get the kids to play. So that's just food for thought for getting us started. How about that?
And staying in the East, Arizona made a trade with Toronto. So we were just talking about catching, and they bring over now Toronto just to lengthen their offensive star power. They had a great catcher there. What's his brain fart here on his name? Who'd they bring over?
His name is well, I got to look because I can't remember off the top of my head. His name is. Why is that not his name? Why is he not listed over there? Because he's not probably going to play.
No, he's starting.
Well, Danny Jansen, Alejandro Kirk, and Varsho are probably going to be.
Varsho.
Well, now Varsho's going to play the outfield. He's not going to catch.
Okay. He caught for Arizona, so they bring him over. The East is going to be a beast. My Sox are in trouble. Obviously, we all know they didn't take care of Bogarts. He is now off in San Diego. We did make the big, splash with Devers. Trevor Story most out for the year. I thought the Mondesi ad was great for the fact that if he can stay healthy. I mean, I know you got to get to first base, but if you can get to first base and stay healthy, it's almost an automatic double with that kid. But our pitching staff, who knows with Sale, they'll probably fall off a bicycle again and get hurt. They're going to leave Whitlock into the starting rotation. We lose Evaldi. So our under over, early in December was 74 and a hook. I saw what you put out there. I mean, the Yankees are supposed to win the East by 5, 6, 7 games over Toronto. Then your Rays, then my Red Sox and the Orioles battling for the basement.
Well, Red Sox season wins on DraftKings right now is 77.5.
Yeah. So we're going to beat Baltimore by 1 game.
Basically is what they're saying. Yeah. So that's what it says. Now, so let me ask you this question. So where is what did I just have up here? Where did it go? And why did maybe I just changed it from something to something else. They're there. So the Red Sox, Sale, Kluber, Pivetta, Paxton, Whitlock. So there's going to be days where Sale's good. There's going to be days Kluber's good. There's going to be days Paxton's good. But there's also going to be days they're going to give up 75 runs. So I think what you're saying is about right with this team. What I think is the problem is going to be that I don't think they're going to be as offensively as good as they were last year. So you're going to run into they got Masataka Yoshida, right? So I don't know if you know much about the kid, but he's supposed to be a really good contact hitter. He's not Ichiro, but he's supposed to be a really good contact hitter. He doesn't strike out a lot. And he's not going to have, the greatest of power, maybe 15 to 20 home runs. So, that's a decent player, but they're showing him as a leadoff guy. And then Enrique Hernandez, who didn't really have a great year last year, but he was always clutch for the Dodgers. But I don't know that really carries over so much into different things. And then their best player, Rafael Devers, right? I mean, he's the guy, and they just signed him for forever. But they got nothing to go around him. So, they picked up Justin Turner. You know how old Justin Turner is, by the way?
38.
38. Holy shit, he's 38 years old. And he's going to bat fourth for the Boston Red Sox. I think that might be an issue, right? So then you got Verdugo, Adam Duvall. He's 34 years old and kind of off of not the best of seasons. And then Tristan Casas, right? That's the guy that they're trying to build around. And the latest one of the reports I saw, he lost a lot of weight coming in this season. So he's supposed to have lost some weight. I don't know if that's good or bad. And then Christian Arroyo and Reese McGuire. I mean, that's who they got. So I look at that and go, let me ask you this. So we just went over that, right? So here, this will be good. Here's the Orioles. So let's do the same thing with the Orioles. So here's the Orioles lineup. Cedric Mullins, I like him. He's pretty good. Bats pretty close to 300. Gets on base, does a lot of stuff. Adley Rushman's just a superstar in the making. Then you got Gunnar Henderson, right? Holy shit, the kid's 21 years old. And then Anthony Santander. Do you know how many home runs Anthony Santander hit last year?
37.
He hit 32. 32. Holy shit. Ryan Mountcastle hit 28 home runs. He bats fifth. And then they got some kids, Ramon Urias, Kyle Stowers, Austin Hayes, and Adam Frazier. That's not a bad pickup. But the point being is that that's a fairly solid lineup. And then their pitching staff has Kyle Gibson. That's better than what I tell you the other guy's name was. Shit, I forget off the top of a sudden. Jordan Lyles, for God's sakes. Cole Irvin, who was like the Oakland A's best pitcher. They got him. Kyle Bradish, who's a developing pitcher for them. And then Dean Kramer, and they got Grayson Rodriguez, and they'll get John Means back in the middle of the season. They can pitch, or at least better than they did a year ago. So I think the Baltimore Orioles are actually a pretty good little team. I think the Toronto Blue Jays are a team to deal with. The Yankees have improved, but they didn't improve on offense. They improved on pitching. They improved because they got Carlos Rodon, and I think people sort of disrespect Carlos Rodon because he pitched for San Francisco. Nobody really remembers him pitching anywhere. The guy is a monster strikeout guy, swing and miss guy, and so is Garrett Cole. Even though Garrett Cole hasn't been nearly like the Garrett Cole that he was for the Astros, but at the same time, they're still two aces. They'll have 500 strikeouts between those two guys. 500. They'll have 250 apiece. So they're going to be pretty dominant as a 1-2 punch. And when you start to think about, okay, when the Yankees come out there and they're not going to have, they thought they were going to have Frankie Montas and he was going to be, their guy, but they're going to have Severino and Cortez, right? Those are two very serviceable pitchers, very good pitchers last year. And they still have Domingo Germán, who can be a good fifth. All right, well, that's a pretty damn good pitching staff. They can pitch. My concern with this team is they didn't do anything on offense to really get better, other than what they're going to do is turn it over to the kids. The kids are going to get a chance to play. You're going to see that Oswaldo Peraza guy, and you're going to see Harrison Bader play at full season, and I think that's going to matter. And you're going to need Aaron Judge to be not MVP Aaron Judge, but he's going to have to be damn good. Otherwise, the Yankees aren't going to beat the Blue Jays. But if they are, the Yankees match up better. I mean, I know it sounds silly, but the Yankees, I don't know, man. There's just something about those pitchers because when you start to think about it, the Toronto Blue Jays did a lot of stuff, and they added some more shit again this year. But they got George Springer, who's great. But do you know how old George Springer is? Shit, he's 33. I didn't know he was that old.
You know where he went to college, right?
No, I don't know. Oh, there you go, UConn boy. So you know how old he was. But yes, Bo Bichette and Guerrero, those guys are like, teenagers. So those guys will be carrying the load. And Dalton Varsho, now everybody's talking about how good Dalton Varsho is. And Dalton Varsho, he is 26, so he's in the prime, right? This is his prime. So here's the issue that I have. These guys that have not played in the American League East don't know what that means. They just don't. Now he's played, he played in Arizona and he's been out there and he's developed and he's, it didn't matter whether they won, didn't matter. It didn't matter. None of that. Well, it does now. You're playing in the American League East and you're playing against guys that throw 80 million miles an hour and you're going to have to produce. So we'll see. I'm expecting him to be a decent player. I don't know if he's going to be what everybody thinks he is. Now that's just me talking off the top of my head, but the projections are all good for him. Everybody thinks he's going to do good. So I don't know why, you to believe me over that. But the point being though, is that it's not easy, right? This team's got Brandon Belt, Whit Merrifield, and Kevin Kiermaier in it. Okay, well, I don't think those are the greatest of guys, right? I mean, they've got Matt Chapman, he's a decent still player. Everybody gave Matt Chapman a bunch of shit about how bad a player he was. Shit, he hit 31 home runs last year. That ain't too bad for a guy that nobody likes, and he plays awesome defense. Their problem is the pitching, Jeff. We talk about Alex Manoah all the time. We think he's the greatest kid in the world, but he really kind of struggled in between. He had a great beginning part, kind of fell apart for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then brought it back together, had a good season end. But Kevin Gausman, Jose Barrios, they picked up Bassett. Bassett's pretty good. But and they got Yusei Kikuchi still. What the hell are they doing with that guy? Shit, I want to hit against that guy. So anyway, point being is I think that the Yankees are deeper on pitching. And if the things fall right, like for example, let's just say Donaldson has a little better year than he did last year, and LeMahieu plays more games than he did last year. They're a much better team. They're just a much better team than they were a year ago. And Judge doesn't have to feel like his legs are going to fall off and his back hurts from carrying that team so much. So anyway, kind of thinking that through, I think you're going to have Yankees. I think you're going to have Blue Jays. And a team we haven't talked about is the Rays. We haven't even said anything about the Rays yet. And I'm going to tell you, they get Glass now back this year and match him up with McClanahan. They can match the top two with anybody. They can pitch with anybody. Their issue is they got to hit. They got to score runs, and they didn't do anything to score any more runs. They need Wander Franco to be healthy and see what he can do. Rosarena is about what you're going to get out of Rosarena. And that big first baseman, third baseman guy, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. But that guy, he about played as best as he could play last year. I'm pulling him up now so I can get you his name. Yandy Diaz. That's about as best as he can play. So I don't know. They still got Brandon Lau. So Brandon Lau stays healthy. He's a 30 home run guy if he can stay healthy. So maybe they can get some runs out of those guys. I think Manuel Margot played well. I think Isaac Paredes, was one of their big home run guys last year, he's not going to get as much playing time this year. They got a couple kids that are coming up that can hit. But it's all going to come down to whether McClanahan, Glasnow, and Rasmussen can pitch. That if they can keep them in the games, they're gonna be there at the end. They just find a way to do it. So you could get 3 teams out of the American League East into the playoffs.
Before we get to the WBC, we got a bunch of people watching. I'm assuming TJ's one of them. So let's stay in the East. Why don't you go into the NL East? Talk about the Miracle Mets. I mean, they bring over Verlander. They have Max. They have a strong pitching staff. They have the best closer in the game with Mr. Trumpets himself, Mr. Diaz. Offensively, I don't say they're offensively challenged. I'm not going to be a smart ass. Alonso's saying all the right things. He wants to stay there. We'll see what happens. Obviously, you got the Atlanta Braves. Again, I saw your standings. I think they had the Mets winning that division by 5 games or something. The Braves are going to go as far as, obviously, if Strider's healthy. If he is healthy, he's as good as they come there. Good young pitcher, throws gas, the ball pops, slider, young youth. Offensively, these guys have, Albies, Acuna. The list is endless. And then you got the World Series runner-up Phillies, who added Trey Turner. And as much as I wanted to bash their bullpen last year, as the playoffs progress, this is usually what happens is these arms wake up and the bullpens are now just throw hard, and harder. And that's what the Phillies actually had in going through that damn tournament and to the World Series. These guys were electric. So take away, and we didn't even talk about the Marlins, who probably have the best 1-2 punch. They got Cy Alcantara. I mean, they got pitching, for a week. I mean, the problem is they just can't score. So why don't you have some fun with the NL East?
Well, I think the NL East is fun because it's superstar power. I mean, you got the names in that league. I mean, you got Ronald Acuna Jr., right? You got Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso. You got those guys. You got Bryce Harper, and you got Rhys Hoskins, and you got Kyle Schwarber, right? You got the talent in this league, and then you got pitchers in this league too. So this is a tough one because these are really, really good teams, and not only are they really good teams, they're all going for it. They're all going for it. The Mets are spending money like crazy. The Braves didn't spend a lot of money, but the Braves did things a lot differently, right? They spent a lot of money on their kids when they were early and signed them up and secured them. And then you got the Phillies out there just doing what Dave Dombrowski does is, throws money all over the place. And, when he leaves, good luck building that stuff back up. Look what the Tigers have to do and look what your Red Sox are doing. When he leaves, holy shit, he leaves a funeral for, I don't know how many years, but it's bad. But that, during this time, it can be fun. So, when you start to think about what these teams are doing and how they're going, I don't think the Nationals are even worth talking about. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, the Nationals, but they're nowhere near competitive to any of those teams. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time there. But I will say this. I look at the New York Mets and I look at the projections of these teams from Fangraphs, and I look at the projections from Baseball Prospectus, and I don't know where they come up with the numbers. I just don't. I like the Mets, so don't yell at me and don't rip my ears off and all that stuff. But the idea though that the Mets are better than they were a year ago, I don't think is right. I like the idea that they have Verlander over DeGrom. I like that idea only because DeGrom didn't pitch. He didn't pitch much, but Jeff, everybody's sitting here talking about DeGrom as this bad pitcher. Jesus Christ, he's the best pitcher available to any team, anywhere, all the time. He's just the best guy. If he's healthy and can go out there and pitch, he's going to throw 100 miles an hour, and the Patriots, they're not going to hit it. They might score one run and get 2 hits in 7 innings, and that's what he's going to give them. So if he's out there and he's on the mound, he's the best there is. There is nobody better. He just is. So they lose that. And now they get Verlander. And Verlander, I thought, showed some wear at the end of the year last season. Now, he pitched pretty good. I think he won the Cy Young Award, if I remember right. I'm old, so I don't remember stuff anymore like I used to. But I don't think that you can sit there and you can go, okay, Verlander is going to be DeGrom, because he's not. He's going to get hit a little bit more. So then you have to go and you go, okay, well, now you back that up with Scherzer. Okay, great. Those are 2 super guys, and you can match them up. And I would, you can match them up with anybody. But let me just be honest. If you put them, and we talked about the Yankees a little bit, if you put them and you said, okay, I got Garrett Cole against Verlander and I got Rodon against Scherzer, who you got? I know who I got. Because I like Rodon better than I like Scherzer, and I think Garrett Cole can come out and he can throw and match Verlander. So I like the idea that the Yankees have a better 1-2 than what the Mets do. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to work out that way, but in my mind, I see it that way because they strike everybody out, Jeff, and that's what this is about anymore. It's about the 3 true outcomes in baseball. If you can strike guys out, keep guys off the base paths with walks, and don't give up home runs, you're going to win games.
Well, can I interject and take Strider and Fried versus those 2?
You can. I like Strider a lot. I'm a little more concerned about Fried than I am any of the other pitchers we mentioned. I like Fried. Don't get me wrong. I like Fried. But you know what I found out is and I don't know how to say this the right way. So if you take Fried, say, for example, and match him up against Wheeler, right? Fried against Wheeler. I would take Wheeler over Fried. The reason I would take Wheeler over Fried is because I think Wheeler's more of a bulldog. I don't know that I have that same feeling with Fried, right? I think Fried can throw and he can pitch and he can do all the stuff. But what if he's just a little off that day?
That's why I'm going to match up Fried with Nola, and I'm going to put Strider versus Wheeler.
Well, there you go. Because that certainly could work, right? That could work because I think when you start to think about the Braves and what a lot of people forget about is, 2 years ago, they had a guy and his name was Michael Soroka. Mm-hmm. He was their best pitcher 2 years ago. And guess what? He had a blown Achilles or something, and he had some other things. And guess what? He's all back this year. So he's going to pitch. And so they're going to have Fried. And you know what? They got great success out of Kyle Wright. Kyle Wright was just as good as about anybody. So you got Kyle Wright. They still got the old man Charlie Morton throwing around down there. So you can't give up on him. And then you got Spencer Strider and Michael Soroka. So they're deep. And that's the difference in some of these teams. They're just deep. And that's what I think the loss is with the Mets. So the Mets, they give up last year. They had Bassett and Walker, right? Those guys are gone. Bassett and Walker are gone. So they have Kodai Senga. Okay, well, is he going to throw really well? I don't know. I mean, I think that the Japanese pitchers tend to do a little bit better than their hitters do when they come over right away, because most of the hitters haven't seen them much. But then they got Carlos Carrasco, who's he's 36 and he's on the downside of his career. And then they have Jose Quintana, which is not a bad sign because he pitched pretty well. But I kind of look at Jose Quintana and think to myself, okay, well, they got him starting in the five spot. That's pretty good because he's probably reasonable there. So I don't mind that, but I don't think it's as good as what it was a year ago necessarily, because I think Walker was pretty good and I think Bassett was pretty good. So I don't know what this Senga is. I don't know where Carrasco is going to be. And to think Quintana is going to be as good as Bassett, I don't think so. So anyway, I don't think they're as good. And then you have to look at the offense of this team. I heard someone say, and I don't remember who it was, and it doesn't matter where, but I heard someone say, hey, you know what? They paid, is this the right one? They paid, what's his name? Brandon Nemo, a shit ton of money, right? They paid this kid a shit ton of money to play. Well, the projections show as an offensive player that Brandon Nemo is the 26th best offensive player in baseball. So if you're going to do that, plus he's a plus defender, I'm okay with that, right? Why not? So if you rank the Mets, and I just look at the Mets, and I don't look at anybody else, all teams, go to the Mets, and I say, hey, what do they look like? Just offensive rank. Pete Alonso's their best player. Well, the second best player is Brandon Nemo. He outranks McNeil and Lindor and Marte and those guys. And the other issue with the Mets is they're not young puppies. The Mets are old. And TJ, I know you might not like to hear that, but the age group of the Mets, when you go back down and you look at it. So let me flip this up here. So age, here we go. So Brandon Nemo is 30. That's older than you maybe thought he was. He's 30. Starling Marte is 34. Jeff McNeil is 31. Daniel Vogelback, how does he make this team? He's 30. Mark Canha, he's 34. Edward Escobar, 34. Omar Narvaez, 31. Francisco Lindor is 29. So they get him for a little longer, but he's right in the middle of his prime. And, I don't think he's done anything what he's necessarily supposed to have done since he was a Met coming over from the Guardians. And then Pete Alonso, he's 28 and he's their guy. Pete Alonso is a guy that's got 100 RBIs every year and hits 40 home runs. If you don't have a 100 RBI guy on your team, it's hard to win because you can get the guys on base, and if you don't drive them in, you're not going to win. So Major League Baseball, that's the biggest hole I see in a lot of teams is they don't have that big RBI guy. It says, what if Beatty and Alvarez turn into their projections? Well, you got to look at their projections first. And when does that happen? So if I go and I look at the projections for Beatty, between Fangraphs and between Zips, Steamer and Zips, they've got him playing 23 games, only batting 98 times. His offense is decent, but he's a prospect that I think you're going to look at not this year but next. And then when you're talking about your catcher, Francisco Alvarez, you got the same issue. He's going to play more. They got him at 34 games, 139 at-bats, but a batting average of 219. So that doesn't project well at this point. 6 home runs, which is decent. But be careful what you hope for, and don't rush these guys too young. Only because I think about what the Yankees did with Gary Sanchez. Gary Sanchez was a kid that hit 20 home runs or something, and they got all crazy, and they thought he was going to hit a guy that was going to hit 30, 40 home runs every year and be, Jorge Posada again. Didn't work out for him, and it hasn't worked out for him. Then he couldn't catch anymore. Then he couldn't call games. Then he was gone. Then he's a Twin. Now he's nobody. He's not signed with anybody. Oh, I forgot. He's playing for the Dominican Republic. Oh, sorry. Anyway, and yeah, so TJ, I think you're right. When you look at these two players, I think that they'll be good when they're ready. They're not ready yet. And it's hard to say that when you don't really get an opportunity. But if Edwin Escobar is going to be your third baseman, then that tells me Matt Beatty's not ready to go. Or Brett Beatty, I'm sorry, he's not ready to go. So because if Brett Beatty was ready to go, he'd play. Because Edwin Escobar, he's a decent player, but he wouldn't take the spot of an up and coming player. Nor would Omar Narvaez, right? Omar Narvaez would. They're just placeholders until those two kids are ready. And maybe it is later on this season that they come up and be ready to go. You can only hope that. I think last time we talked, you were headed down there. You're going to watch them play in Port St. Lucie. So maybe you can give me firsthand knowledge. That would be cool.
All right. I keep leading us up to the WBC, but I got to ask you this. You've talked AL East. You've talked NL East. I'm going to give you 4 guys. Soto, Tatis, Machado, Bogarts.
Yeah.
That's 4 pretty damn good offensive and defensive guys. Now, I know Tatis is going to miss almost the first month. I get that. Their pitching staff, if could ever stay healthy, yet the Dodgers are projected to beat them by 6, 8, 9 games, however long it is. Give me your version on the dot. Listen, the Padres. Listen, I'm wearing a Padres hat this year, even though I'm a Red Sox guy. Listen, I got double headers every night. I got the Sox at 7, and I got the Padres at 10 or 9:40.
So last season, Juan Soto was projected to be the best player in baseball. Didn't really work out for him. Got off to a bad start. Some weird stuff was going on. Went to San Diego, didn't get off to the best of starts, but started to turn things around. He started to get better. He is projected to be the best player in baseball this season. He is number 1 over Aaron Judge, number 2 over Yordan Alvarez, and then Mike Trout, and then Fernando Tatis Jr. So the San Diego Padres have 2 of the best top 5 hitters, offensive players in all of baseball. And if you go down a little bit farther, you're going to find Manny Machado. And if you go down a little bit farther, you're going to find Xander Bogaerts. So this team can hit and they can play. So I think when you look at the Padres, it's hard for let's say it this way. When you're the Dodgers, and what did they win last year? 107 games, 108 games?
111.
111 games. Okay, so the Dodgers won 111 games last season. So even if the Dodgers are 11 games worse, they win 100 games. So if they lose 20 games more, 20 games, they still win 91. So the Padres, to catch the Dodgers, I think, is where you're seeing this kind of deal. But what if the Dodgers are actually 30 games worse? Could they be? Well,
No.
I mean, if your best pitcher is Urias, which is what they have, he's their best pitcher, and then Kershaw, right? So Kershaw, he's 80 years old. but he can still pitch. He's a bulldog. He's not going to pitch every game. And the problem with Kershaw is can you see him matched up in games against the NL East? Can you see Kershaw as being the number 2 against Max, against Aaron Nola? I mean, he's not going to be the favorite. He won't be.
What about Carrot Top? Is he coming back at the start of the season?
Well, he's supposed to be. I mean, he's supposed to be, but I don't trust that kid. I mean, what's he done so far? I think he throws hard, but I mean, he hasn't gone out there and won games. I mean, Gonsolin's the guy who's won the games. Now, they got lucky as hell last year because they had that left-handed kid that went on and signed with the Rangers, or whoever they signed with somebody, and Anderson. Tyler Anderson. He pitched really good for them, and they lost him. So if you really look at the Dodgers, and you kind of go and say, well, how are they going to put all this together? The pitching staff is Clayton Kershaw, Julio Urias, Tony Gonsolin, Noah Syndergaard, and Dustin May. That's who it is. Now, can those guys go out and win any night? Sure, they could go out and win any night. But you're going to need Gonsolin, Syndergaard, and May to be better than they were, and Gonsolin to be at least as good as he was, because those guys aren't lights out stuff. Now May's got some pretty lights out stuff, but he's got to pitch some innings. He's one of those kids that got hurt and he's come back and he's trying to make it. And maybe he turns into another one of these kids that throws 100 miles an hour, that can throw 6 innings, 7 innings. But I don't know. And then their bullpen, their closers now, Daniel Hudson. I mean,
and they added Alex Reyes this week. I don't know if he's going to be ready at the start of the season. I know he's been the great hope in St. Louis for a long. I get it. He's always hurt, but it just seems like whenever a pitcher comes over to the Dodgers, they turn into Hercules, just like they do in St. Louis. So I'm not counting it out.
Well, look, your bullpen is going to carry you in a lot of these games, but let's talk about their offense, right? So they have 3 guys. They have Mookie Betts, they have Freeman, and they have Will Smith. People aren't giving Will Smith enough credit for what he is. I mean, he is a dynamic catcher, and he would be the best catcher in the National League if it weren't for Real Muto. He had 25 home runs. He bats, 260. He's going to drive in plenty of runs. He's a great player. And then they got Max Muncy. Okay, well, Max Muncy, had a terrible season last year. He's projected, he batted 223 last year. That's what he batted. And they picked up JD Martinez. Maybe JD gets a little kick in the duty and can play. Gavin Lux hasn't been, the amazing star player they thought he was going to be, but he's a decent player. And then they have to get Trace Thompson. They picked up David Peralta. They got Miguel Vargas. And they got Miguel Rojas and these kind of guys. They got Jason Hayward. Who cares about these players? They got Jason Hayward. So
didn't he play with Babe Ruth? I mean, he's going to be 85 years old.
Well, Jason Hayward is 34. Jason Hayward's 34. So I look at it and I think to myself that they're going to win games. I think they will, because I think they're a good team. I mean, but when you go back and then you go and say, what do the Padres have? I'll tell you what the Padres did this week that makes them better than any of the other teams. They signed Michael Wacha.
Mm-hmm. From the Red Sox. He had the most wins on the team last year.
Now, let me tell you why that's important. It's important because at the top of the line, top of the deal, you got Yu Darvish, right? Okay, well, okay, he's great, but he can be underdog matched up to some better aces than what he is. But then you got Blake Snell and you got Joe Musgrove. Okay, well, those are some pretty good guys. Prior to Michael Wacha showing up, they have Nick Martinez and they have Seth Lugo. Okay. They were going to run a 6-man rotation and still might. So now you put in Michael Wacha. Michael Wacha makes a solid 4, and then you can kind of bounce around Nick Martinez and you can bounce around Seth Lugo all you want to. But I think that in the bullpen, then you go and you got, okay, I got Josh Hader, Roberto Suarez, and Luis Garcia, and these guys just come out and throw gas. And then all of a sudden you add Drew Pomerantz to that, who missed all last season. But guys forget Drew Pomerantz is a left-handed guy that goes out there and just gets those guys out all the time. He's just when they put him in the bullpen, he just took off. So there's a good likelihood that this is the best Padres team that I can think of forever. And there's a good likelihood that they're going to beat the Dodgers out. And I think that what I was surprised at when I saw that number from the PECOTA standings was San Francisco is basically a 500 team and Arizona is not. I would think that Arizona, with the youth and the players that they have in development that they're getting, I think Arizona is going to creep more towards 500, and San Francisco is still not going to be there. San Francisco is weird. San Francisco is a team that, and I don't want to take up too much more time because we got other things to talk about, but the San Francisco Giants are a team, when you start to think about what they brought in, they missed out on the shortstop, right, who couldn't pass a physical anywhere. So they go out and they bring in Mitch Haniger, Michael Conforto, and that's going to be what they run with. Okay, well, I don't think that's nearly enough to be competitive in the National League West to put them over the top. And they still didn't bring it. They brought in, they got Logan Webb, Alex Cobb. Okay, Alex Cobb's not a number 2, but he pitched pretty well last year. Logan Webb's a good number 1. He would be a number 2 on a lot of teams just because he doesn't throw that hard. But then you bring in Sean Manaea, who got rocked in San Diego. And then you bring in Ross Stripling, who had a pretty good season in Toronto. But, okay, you're going to bring him in and pitch there. And you got Alex Wood. And then you got DeSclafani, who's going to pitch. So they might run a 6-man rotation. That's one of the things I see in all these notes that I'm collecting right now is there's lots of teams, more than one. Lots meaning like 5, 6, 7 teams thinking about running a 6-man rotation this year, which I find very interesting. Like the Angels are going to run a 6-man rotation just because of Shohei Ohtani. So they're going to run that. But I also read that they're going to go, okay, look, we need more innings out of our starters this year than what we got last year. So maybe the top 3 guys, they rotate on a 5-game, and then the rest of them kind of rotate on a 6-game. So it's going to be an interesting season in terms of how the pitchers are used and how fresh they can be. Because if you remember back to the playoffs and the World Series, these games were over when their bullpens came in. I mean, Jesus Christ, Jeff. These guys, every single one of them comes in, they throw 107 miles an hour, and they just throw it right past everybody, and you're like lucky as shit if you get a hit off of them, and unless you're like the Mariners and bring in Robbie Ray, a starting pitcher, and he gives up the game-winning home run to Yordan Alvarez and puts the Astros in a 1-1 series instead of being down 0-2. So it's one of these situations where baseball's fun, man, and it's going to be exciting this year. I say all that all the time. But I still think your teams like the Royals and the Tigers and the teams that aren't any good, they're not going to be any good this year either. So they're not going to who cares about them? You got to deal with the teams that are good and have fun with them.
Yourself, TJ, Miami, home of the quarters, semis, and I think the finals. WBC. All the watchers, listeners, people out there right now. Give them a preface what to expect. Give them some odds, some, a couple tidbits here and there, what you're going to see, what to expect. I assume these players that are on, obviously, the major league teams, this will be their spring training for the most part. They'll check in with their home teams. They'll go out and play the WBC, and then I guess they'll come back, report, and the season will start, something like that, right?
Yeah, well, these games start March the 8th, and then they the way this works, if you're not really familiar with the World Baseball Classic, is there are 4 pools of 5 teams in each pool. So there's 20 teams, and they have to qualify to get there. So some of these teams have already played a little bit to get in, like the team Great Britain. They had to win a qualifier to get into this tournament. So Czech Republic did the same thing. They had to win. Panama had to win, and who was the other one? Nicaragua had to win. So those 4 teams got in through playing in qualifiers, because there is a world ranking for all these teams. I didn't know that, but I looked it up, and there's that they go down to, I don't know, 120 different countries and shit. So if you want to make it into this, you got to be at the top. So anyway, they get the best of the best, and then they play these games similar to spring training games, but they obviously count. So pitchers will be on pitch counts. So the first round of games, I think, maybe they got a 50 pitch count or something like that, maybe 55, something like that. So a starting pitcher might only go 3-4 innings. So a lot of the teams, the way they've done it in the past, has had one starter backed up by another starter, and then they bring in the relievers. So especially if they were, a couple of good starting pitchers. But it's interesting how some of this works, because these teams are coached by not managers that you may know as being managers. They're former players, or they're former this or former that. Because the reality is that this is an exhibition. It really doesn't mean anything, although it means a lot to win for your country. I can tell you that, especially after this has developed into what it has. But these managers and coaches and stuff have to coordinate with the parent team, who's going to pitch, how much they want to pitch. If one of them says a shortstop, for example. So, for example, Team USA, they have Trey Turner that plays for them, and Tim Anderson. Okay, well, they both can't play, but they both got to get at bats, and they both got to get live pitching. So there has to be some sort of a way that is worked out prior to. So, okay, if Trey Turner gets 3 of the 4 at bats, he gets 3 of the 4 at bats. I don't know. Maybe Tim Anderson plays second base, and maybe that's okay with the White Sox. I don't know, but those are different things that have to get worked out because of the way the rosters play out. So a lot of that stuff is kind of different. And as they get to the final games and that stuff, that'll be their second time through, and then they can pitch a little longer in these games. But but yes, you're correct in kind of how it works. It kind of works where this is spring training. They go to those camps. They're not in their own home camps. They go to Team Cuba, or they go to Team Dominican Republic, and they report there, and they're working together as a team for a few weeks. And then, I'm sure they probably have representatives from the teams there, making sure that they're getting the work in that they should. And then they play these games, and the way the odds opened, and I don't know if it was necessarily open. I have it posted on on what day is today? This was February the 10th. The Dominican Republic was plus 200, and Team USA was plus 225. Those are the two favorites. And then Japan was plus 280, and Puerto Rico was plus 850. So those were the top 4. And then today, when I have it right sitting here in front of me, it's Dominican Republic plus 210, USA plus 210 or 250, Japan plus 300, Puerto Rico plus 900. So I think when you're going to kind of look at this, you got to understand what teams play in what pools, because for example, Team USA and Team Dominican Republic, the two favorites to win, can't play in the finals. So they're not going to match in the finals. It's impossible. The reason it's impossible is because they're in the same pool, or will be in the same pool when they come out. So Team USA plays in Pool C, and Team Dominican Republic plays in Pool D, and those two will be in a semifinal together. So they can't both make it to the finals. Only one of them can. And then on the other side, if you think about it, Team Japan plays in Pool B. And then I don't know who the best team is out of the rest of them. Pool A would have Chinese Taipei, the Netherlands, Cuba, Italy, and Panama. So it looks like Cuba at plus 1,400 is the next betting favorite. And if you don't think Japan can beat Cuba, you got to really think about who plays for Japan. We'll go over that in a second. But the reality is, I think Japan beats everybody in Pool B, and I don't think they have much of a problem beating Pool A. And I think Japan makes it to the finals. I don't want to say relatively easy, but they don't have to play Puerto Rico. They don't have to play Venezuela. They don't have to play USA. They don't have to play Mexico. They don't have to play these teams. And because of that, their breakdown of the bracket, I think, puts them in. So my thought is, why not take a shot and see if they can win it all? I mean, they're the third betting favorite, plus 300. I think that's the best value play on the board, because if you bet, say you bet $100 on Team Dominican Republic to win, and you bet $100 on Team USA to win. Well, you're going to get paid $250 for the USA plus $210 on Dominican Republic. So let's say Dominican Republic wins and you bet $200, you won $10. You're guaranteed to at least win $10. Well, who wants to win $10 when you're betting $100? On the other side of it, if you bet Japan and you bet them at 300 to 1, or plus 300, right? So 30 to 1. If you bet them to win and you take them to the finals, can they actually beat Team USA or can they beat Team Dominican Republic? Well, the odds say they can. And think about this. What if Shohei Ohtani's on the mound that day? What if Shohei's on the mound that day throwing 97 miles an hour gas, and then they bring in Yu Darvish to come in and close out the game? Can those two pitchers beat Team USA? Can they beat Dominican Republic? I think they could. So that being said, that gives them a fighting chance, and I think Team Japan is the best value to look at regarding futures in the World Baseball Classic.
You said they were 3 to 1?
Yeah. 301. So you're getting plus 300 on Japan. You're getting 250 on the United States. And at the very beginning, before they put the rosters out, it was Dominican Republic plus 200, Team USA plus 200. Now people are wanting the Dominican Republic be more so than Team USA. And I did a little breakdown on those two teams. And one of the things that I think is important to realize is that listen to this lineup for Team Dominican Republic, for God's sakes. So Juan Soto is going to play. You have Julio Rodriguez from Seattle, who's going to play. Manny Machado, Jeremy Pena, the shortstop from Houston, and Rafael Devers. You got Willie Adames on that team. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Eloy Jimenez, Manny Machado, Ketel Marte, even the guys that ain't any good. Gene Segura is one of those guys, right? Gene Segura is getting a little up there, but Jesus. And then when you look at the pitchers, they have the best starters. Sandy Alcantara is going to be really good. He's on that team. And they got Christian Javier. He strikes out everybody. So you got those two guys. Of course, they did get Johnny Cueto. I guess he's going to help a little bit. But they got those guys, and then the bullpen, they got Edwin Diaz, right? And then they got Diego Castilla, Genesis Cabrera. I mean, you just walk out there and there's 100 miles an hour, bang, 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 bang. Okay. But how does that match up, right? So Team USA, Pete Alonso, that's pretty good. Mike Trout, that's really good. Mookie Betts, that's really good. Kyle Tucker, that's pretty damn good too. Cedric Mullins, G.T. Realmuto, Kyle Schwarber, Will Smith, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado. I mean, holy shit, Jeff, the best of the best are playing, except for the pitchers. So the best pitcher, Nestor Cortez was one of the best pitchers, and he ain't going to pitch no more because he's got a hamstring problem. And they're bringing in Kyle Freeland. Okay, bringing this left-handed guy that's going to get killed. So Kyle Freeland pitches. But, they got Clayton Kershaw. They got Merrill Kelly, Lance Lynn, Miles Michaelis. I mean, are you kidding? That doesn't match up. And then the bull and Adam Wainwright. Adam Wainwright's their best pitcher, I think. So then you got Devin Williams in the bullpen, Daniel Bard, David Bednard, Kendall Graveman. They're good pitchers. And when I looked at them, I was surprised that the actual strikeouts per 9 actually do match up pretty good. But they're just not guys that are going to come out there and throw gas. And and do it. So I think the way I looked at this is the offensive lineups between the two kind of match up pretty good, except for Team Dominican Republic has more superstars, and Team USA has a little more depth. And then when it comes to the pitching, I think that's where Team Dominican Republic kind of makes it a little different. I think that they're going to make that happen and kind of go from there. But Jeff, the Japanese team got Yu Darvish. They got Kenta Maeda's going to pitch. They got Shohei Ohtani, Kodai Senga. They got the kid that what was the guy's name that I said that was going to play for the Red Sox? What's his name? That kid's going to play. They got and obviously he's going to hit Shohei. So remember Nori Ioka, he's going to play. So I think that this is a team that can get there, and I think it's a team that can compete. So anyway, that's kind of my thoughts. I'm excited. I think it's going to be fun to watch. I think it's going to be hard to bet because I think the big favorites are going to be big favorites, especially in the even when Dominican Republic plays Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico's got Francisco Lindor and Javi Baez and those guys, and I think that that's going to be a big game for everybody to watch. But I think that the Dominican Republic will be big favorites, and I think Team USA will be big favorites. Team Mexico is going to be surprising if you really. I would have to pull them up. I don't have them right here in front of me, but they have some guys that aren't Mexicans. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. That are going to play for them that make them pretty good. So they'll be a little bit surprising. I don't think they're going to compete with Team USA, but I think they'll be a lot less of a doormat than what people think they are. So you might find some value when they play, Great Britain or somebody like that. You could get some value on teams like that.
I can't wait. It's going to be definitely, it's funny. Did some fantasy teams baseball back in the day. Now I just invest, and I'm the guy holding on to the coattails and letting my other friends do all the work as I'm there at the draft table and the waiver wire on Sundays. But I always hated my pitchers pitching in this thing. There's never been good news. These guys coming out of this tournament, they're always nagging injuries. There's always something, and I get it. Okay, I understand the hype. I think it's going to be amazing, especially on paper. It's going to be fun to watch, especially that time of year. TJ, you be my witness. You get a pen and pad and start taking notes for all the people that are playing that will not be playing at point during the MLB, and how many, not games, how many weeks, if not months, some of these people miss, Scotty. You know that, and I know that.
Oh, there's no question. I was going to tell you, so Team Mexico has Alex Verdugo, has Chris Davis. Remember Chris Davis, home run hitter that played for Oakland A's, struck out all the time, but then hit 40 home runs every year.
That old man batting 182?
Yep, that guy. Adrian Gonzalez, who plays for the Los Angeles Dodgers, not the old Adrian Gonzalez, but the younger Adrian Gonzalez. Julio Urias, the pitcher for the Dodgers. Roberto Osuna is a pitcher, closer for Toronto, or not a closer, but one of the guys that comes out of the bullpen. Marco Estrada, pitcher. Giovanni Gallardo. So Sergio Romo is going to pitch for that team. I also thought it was kind of interesting that Lars Nootbaar is getting a lot of run this offseason. He's an outfielder for the St. Louis Cardinals, and people think he's going to be good. Anyway, he's playing for Team Japan. Korea, South Korea. He's playing for Korea. I'm like, how does he get to play for Korea, for God's sakes? But whatever. I mean, it is what it is. These guys are going to go play and they're going to have fun, and it is what it is. So he gets to travel over to the other side of the world, and he gets to play in Japan, in Tokyo. for those pools and those rounds. We're going to have 2 rounds here in the United States. The U.S. pool is going to be played in Phoenix, in Arizona out there. And then the pool D, where the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, and they're going to play in Miami. And then the finals and the semifinals are going to be here in Miami. So it's interesting how it all plays out, but I think it's going to be just a blast. And it'll be so much fun, and it'll lead into we don't have to bet the goddamn preseason games, man. You don't have to worry about this stupid ass shit. Although people will be doing both, right? They'll be out there betting on these games, and they'll be betting the preseason games. I mean, guys, let me just explain to you one thing. I played baseball. I played at a pretty high level of baseball, and I've been in clubhouses. I've been in their locker rooms, dugouts, and all the stuff. I've been to preseason spring training games. I've been in them. Let me just explain that they are totally practice games. Now, if you win money playing these games, good for you. But if you think you're betting on something logical, you have no idea what you're doing. And I say that because it is a total exhibition. Managers want to see certain things. They might tell a pitcher to go out there and I want to see you throw 25 straight changeups. I want to see what happens. And then that guy's got to go out there and throw 25 straight changeups. And you're going to bet on that? How do you know that's even going to be out there? Or he might go and say, you know what? I know that this pitcher is a lefty and he normally faces right-handers, but I want you to face a bunch of lefties today or righties today, and I want to see how this goes. That's what happens in these games. They some of the guys are working on their swings. Some of the guys are trying to make the team. Some of the guys are just going, Jesus Christ, I want to get this shit over with so when April comes, I'm ready to go. So trust me when I tell you, there's no rhyme or reason, and there is shit. You've got a guy in the bat, his number is 76 and he's batting 4th. Okay, what does that tell you?
True story. Probably 5 years ago, I was out in Vegas. I go out every March for 2 to 3 weeks for the NFBC, the high stakes fantasy baseball drafts, and the March Madness tournament and the start of MLB. And I was working on my spreadsheet on preseason and for baseball. And then I would get the overnight numbers strictly from Caesars, because not all the sports books in Vegas will do spring training baseball. So I had to find out who was doing them. So I'd go to the desk, talk to the manager. I'd get their overnight numbers. I'd put them up with mine. Then I'd get their opening numbers. And I'll just say I went there for other reasons, but I was just trying to sharpen my skills. And listen, I was putting minimal, might have had a half a unit here, a half unit here, and we were rolling that year. Actually, it was 2017 to be exact. In the tournament, that's when we broke the record and we went 30-2 in the tournament. When I was in Vegas for those couple of weeks, I went 17-3, and my bankroll was massive. Anyways, I was just trying to get to the games. Honest to God truth, I had the Astros, and it was 8-0, bottom of the 9th, and the relief pitcher was working on his slider. And they had no one warming up. The manager said, you're just going to throw your slider like you just talked about. He gave up 9 runs, got 1 out. So I know exactly what you I'm like looking at what's slider, ball, base hit, double, slider. I'm like, what the? And then I got the report afterward. That's all he did was he threw like 42 sliders, got 1 out or something stupid, and gave up 9 runs.
But that's what spring training's for, and people don't realize that there are some young players or veterans who are trying to latch onto a team that are actually trying to do something. But ultimately, they're just trying to be better baseball players, and it's in their practice games. And they work on stuff. I mean, holy shit, Jeff! You got pitchers running around in the outfield while the game's going on. So they're taking their jogs, getting their running in and stuff in the middle of the damn game. So it's there's a reason why you got to be careful, and it's just silliness. I wrote an article earlier today, and it's been something that's been bugging me ever since I saw somebody on Twitter start saying something. Our lanes are filled full of garbage right now, and I don't mean that disrespectfully to people, but it's true. You get a guy that goes out and wins for a week or so, and then all of a sudden they become a handicapper, and I get it. I'm not suggesting by any stretch of the imagination that professional people know all the angles that there is, and that every viewpoint that a novice has is just something you should throw off into the corner. I'm not suggesting that, because that's not true either. What I will suggest is this: you follow professionals for a couple of reasons. The first one is that you have consistency in performance. You typically don't have so many ups and so many downs. I run my streaks. I get hot and I get cold, but you get to a point where your understanding is long term, not short term, and everything that you do means that you're making better bets. So betting is part of this game that I don't think that a handicapper understands. Handicappers can go out there and they compare this team to that team, or this player to that team, and then they go out there and they say, well, this is a great bet. But they don't understand, right? So the analogy that I think that it makes sense here is that if Circa opens the Super Bowl at -2.5 for the Chiefs, and then everybody and their brother comes in and says, well, that's garbage, let's start betting on the Eagles. And they bet so much on the Eagles that the Eagles get to -2.5, right? So sharp guys come in and go, holy shit, I can get 2.5, and I can get the Chiefs for 2.5. I'm going to take that. So, okay, that bounces back down. It's -1, -1.5. It's where it ends up. So everybody sits there and goes, well, I got the Eagles -1, and it's -110. So, that's 52% odds, right? I got to win that bet more than 52% of the time. What if I told you that bet was only good? It should win only 45% of the time. And then everybody's mouth goes, huh? What are you talking about? I don't get that. Okay, well, there is a way to calculate these games and understand what you're betting. That's what professionals do. Professionals go and say, well, this bet should win 55% of the time, and I'm getting the Chiefs +2.5. Are you goddamn out of your mind? So I'm getting plus money, and it should win 55% of the time. Give me the Chiefs, for God's sakes. And everybody else and their brothers out there going, oh my God, look, everybody's betting the Eagles. I got to bet the Eagles. I got to bet the Eagles. So that's what they do. That's not what professionals do, and that's the difference. That's why you follow professionals, and that's why you listen to what professionals do. So there's a big difference in what professionals do in terms of why they bet and how they bet. And then there's another big difference in terms of what professionals do is that they handle their bankroll. So I don't know how many times, Jeff, you've seen it, and I've seen it. We've seen it. My hair's gray. It's falling out. And at this point, I think to this point, how many guys have I seen get hot? They start opening this business, and they stay hot for another week. And then 2 weeks later, they're out of business. Why are they out of business? Because they lost all their money. Why did they lose all their money? Because they started losing bets, and they lost enough bets that they didn't know how to bet, and they didn't know how to teach their people how to bet. And then everybody thinks they're a scam, and then they go away, and they were a scam, and they should have gone away. So what does that do? It convolutes the market. It totally makes guys like Jeff and myself seem like we're out here preaching and doing all this stuff. Listen, guys, I'm just going to tell you as simple as I can. I don't care whether you follow me or whether you don't. I'm going to make bets. And I try to do things to help because I think it's fun. I think it's fun to teach people the business. I think it's fun to get involved. I think it's fun to help people out. I started charging again this year, Jeff. I took 2 years off. And I think you'll find this very reasonable for me. I charge $49 a month, or I charge $200 for a season. $200. That's one bet in a lot of people's minds. So the point being is, I'm not trying to make money off of you. That stuff costs me money to get a laptop. It costs you money to be on these TV shows. It costs money to do advertising. It costs money to host a website. It costs money to get all these little fancy things you see on Twitter that we do and all this fun stuff. It costs money. So all I'm asking that you do is you pay for that. I'll show you the rest. I'll give you all the stuff. I'm not charging you much. So anyway, follow me along. Jeff does the same thing. I think we have a great time together. What's really cool is the way Jeff does it and the way I do it are totally different from each other. But you'll learn so much when we're on together. So I think it's fun, and I appreciate the time.
Yeah, when you and I start working together, and that was one of our VIPs. And TJ, if you're still here, we only cashed with 8 minutes left to go tonight. We had the over in the Army Colgate game, over 144.5, and to 145 with 8 minutes to go. So congrats there. The Webby odds. And so when you start creating your Webby odds and you got, let's just say you got the Cardinals minus 128 today with Wainwright on the mound, and yet the opening lines are pick 'em. And then you and I going back and forth, and I'm reading the market, you're reading your odds, and that's what makes it so great. You pull up your numbers, I pull up my overnight numbers, my morning numbers, and what the current number is, and sift through the madness. And what I have done a lot this past year is I really don't look at those ticket counts anymore. You don't see me preaching splits because everyone's doing them and they're only telling you what they want to do. And I use them early in our years. This is the start of our 8th year now. And so I use them to build the portfolio, so the spreadsheets, to build the model. And now we've been crushing team totals. We've been team totals, over-unders. In baseball, we'll be into the first fives. We'll be in team totals there. And we're taking away the less concentrated market. So, for instance, what was it yesterday? If we like a game, like for instance, if there's a minus 200, I'll take a perfect example. If there's Kershaw and the Dodgers are minus 200, and I'm not doing run lines anymore for full games. I'm not doing them puck lines for hockey games, but I want to get in there. Well, the over-under is 7.5. And I can get plus money on the Dodgers team total at 4.5 over plus 120. I'll take my shot for them to get to 5. If I lose, it's just an even bet. I lose 100 to make 100. If I win, I bet 100 to make 120. I'm not getting involved in the minus 200s anymore. I'm staying away from those big numbers, and I'm looking for the plus money value, whether it's a hockey team total, a college football team total, an NFL team total. For instance, in our Super Bowl, we had the Niners at 14-1 in November. We had the Bengals at 13-1 in November. Before the tournament started, we needed to get in some Kansas City and some Philly. That's how I wanted to build the portfolio. We got Jalen Hurts at plus 650 to win the Super Bowl MVP. We got Patrick Mahomes plus 400 to win the Super Bowl MVP. At halftime of the Super Bowl, I couldn't lose because Jalen Hurts had already won the MVP if the Eagles won. And then we had 400 on Patrick. If Kansas City was going to win the Super Bowl, other than probably Kelsey or that defensive back that should have had 2 touchdowns, 1 called back, we would have had that. So we're looking at different ways to get the plus money. I'm not even talking EV, CLV, and all those initials. That's for another day. But you and I, ebony and ivory, oil and vinegar, whatever you want to call it. But when we mesh together, forget about it.
Well, but that's partly what I was talking about just a minute ago. It's the novice player, the novice person doesn't understand what they're buying into, right? So guys like us don't want to do shit for free. I don't. My time's too valuable. So I just don't. Not anymore. I mean, that time's over, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. So don't think of it. I'm sitting here trying to blow my own horn. That's not what it's about. But my time, anytime I'm doing a show like this, or anytime I'm doing an article that I write, or anytime that I'm doing these things trying to help people, is time away from actually making money. So that's a problem in itself. but I feel like it's partly my job because I like to do that, former business lives and different things of being a leader. You try to lead people and you try to do different things and you help them. So that's what I feel like I need to do. But I also feel like it's so disingenuous that the Twitter world and the Twitter, gambling Twitter and all these other different things that are out there that these people get on and, oh, these are free plays. And why are you listening to anybody giving away their time for free? Nobody of any value does that. Nobody. You wouldn't go to a doctor and go, hey, I want you to operate on my liver for free. You wouldn't do that because you want somebody who's vested. You want somebody who's paid their dues. You want somebody who's a professional in the industry, right? These guys that would just go and say, okay, well, I'll operate. I'll just do it because, I'm good-hearted. I'll give it to you for free. And, well, what does that tell you they know? Nothing. It tells you they know nothing. So the point being is and I don't want to say that I'm a doctor, but I will tell you this is a professional business. This is a consulting business, and all consultants are the same. Professional consultants do not give their time away for free. They don't. So if you get anything from us, if you get certain things, or you get certain liens, or you get certain anythings, like, we talked about Japan, right? Those are thoughts and theories, and, we put money on them, but maybe I didn't put a full unit on. You don't know how much money I bet on those things. So the point being is that, yes, I think it's valuable. Yes, I think Baltimore's a good play too. But at the same time, I'm not out there showing you all that. If you want to see all that, you can. I'll let you sign up today. But the point being is that, it just depends on who you are, what you're looking for. And the best advice I can give anybody, especially all these new players, right? You got new players in Massachusetts, you got new players in Ohio, you got people that are just chomping at the bit to figure out how to do this. Get involved and pay somebody's fee. I'm just going to tell you, get involved and pay a fee to somebody. Learn the business, and as you're learning the business, get rewarded for their work, right? Do you understand how much research goes into these games? This is a grind, man. This is every minute of every day. It is, and you don't have to do it. You just let us do it, and we're good at it. So the point being is that I would strongly advise that people who think they can do this. When you want to try, but get ready for a second bankroll. And when you're ready to really figure out how to do it, call Jeff, call me. We'll help you out.
We'll be doing a lot more baseball, people. We can't thank you enough. This was the first one. We only went an hour and a half. That would be about a 4-inning. Actually, that would be probably 2.5 innings, Red Sox in Boston right now. So, but
not
again,
anymore. I mean, these games are going to go by, man.
Yeah, the pitch counts. I mean, there's a time clock now and bigger bases, no shift, all that good stuff. So, people, if you're not following Scotty, go on over to I have it up there somewhere for you, Scotty, at MLB.
Yeah, Webby 20 at Webby 20 MLB on Twitter.
There it is, right there, Webby 20 MLB. Follow him; he'll follow you back. You can follow me at EC Sports Invest. You guys want to talk shop? We're always here to talk shop. As we get closer to the WBC, as we get closer to Cactus League, Grapefruit League, spring training, Scotty and I are going to work on a schedule, and we'll try to come on here 2, 3, 4 nights a week, or 2 days, 2 nights, whatever it is. We're going to talk shop, talk AL, NL, futures, under-overs and stuff like that. I'm projected, Scotty, to go out to Vegas March 20th for 2 weeks. If Massachusetts is launching its mobile apps March 10th. So if I get too busy and I can't, there'll be a godsend for all of us. But if I do go, I'll go to the Westgate again, see if they're doing the baseball contest, and we'll each split that again so we get the over-under contest there. And how did we end up last year? Do you remember?
It was about 50-50, to be honest.
50-50. That's usually the way it is, right?
It is about 50-50. I mean, there's some that you sit there and you make your wagers on, right? We make our wagers and do pretty well on those. And then you sit there and go, well, shit, this can't be right. This can't be right. What was the one that we were out there and everybody was telling you, the Brewers or somebody? Oh, yeah, the Brewers were going to be over. Everybody and their brother was on the Brewers. And we didn't go Brewers on there over, and they came under. It's like, shit happens. Stuff every year. Everybody thinks this is easy. It's not easy, guys. This is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. That's why it's a grind.
Thank you again, people. We will see you soon. Stay in your lanes. Tomorrow is Thursday. Currently, Andrew McGinnis at 1 o'clock. We'll be talking some NHL there. And at 4 or 4:30, myself and Riley will be here for the closing bell. 9 o'clock tentatively, myself and Brady Tinker for Sportsbook Confessions. And then the weekend will be here. So thank you all for tuning in. Come follow us. We'll follow you back, and we'll have some fun. Baseball's right around the corner, guys. See you soon.